All right, hey everybody, I'm Sean from Cat3 Memes, and I'm going to walk you through my setup for the Everesting. I'm using my regular Tarmac SL6, and my goal with this was kind of to do it as cheaply as possible, and that didn't really end up being a thing. I did spend a lot of money, but that's kind of what led me to some of the changes that I made. So the first thing that meant, I did not want to change my crank. I didn't feel like dealing with some of the spacing issues. I didn't want to buy a new crank. So I kept my regular Ultegra crank on. I did change my small chain ring to a compact ring, and it's locked in the small ring. So the cable here is disconnected. I just left it in there so I can easily reconnect it when I go back to a regular setup. I left the large ring on also because I didn't want to spend money on a narrow wide chain ring. So my big ring is kind of acting as a chain guard at this point. What I did do, I got a 1x11 Dior rear derailleur, and that is specifically designed for this ultra wide range cassette. So I have an 1151 cassette. And then the key to making this work, there's a different cable pull ratio on Shimano's mechanical road versus mountain equipment. So to make the road shifters work with the mountain Grupo, I had to get this wolf tooth cable pull converter, and this is called a Tampan, and it changes the pull ratio when you shift from the road ratio to the mountain ratio. I'm also running, courtesy of Motion Fitness up in Fitchers, these Roval CLX Alpinists, which are ultralight wheels, but I think when combined with the giant pie plate in the back, it ends up being about the same weight as my normal wheel set. So all things said and done, the bike is not ultra light, but it's definitely not heavy. I'm running my normal brake setup. I weigh about 150 pounds, so I'm not super heavy. I can brake fairly easy, but I do have a bunch of extra rotors and pads ready to go for the day as well. And I'll be rocking probably just one water bottle for the day as well to save a little bit of weight there.
My name is Patrick Williams. This is my 2021 Specialized Crux that I purchased from Revolution Bike and Bean. It currently has road tires on it. Other than that, I have no idea what adjustments have been made to it. I follow the recommendation of Jesse. I know that's really small. Those are road pedals. And a nice set of wheels.
I didn't even know that. I think it's like a new...
Yeah, I have no idea what size of that or that is.
Hi, I'm Blaine. This is my S-Works Venge, highly modified now for Everesting.
That's perfect.
One of the things I learned in my first half on this hill was that balance on the bike is really important. I tended to have my front wheel coming up when I was climbing the steepest part, and I can tell you going up the hill with a wheelie is really unsettling.
It's a car. All right, round two.
So I have a 20 millimeter longer stem on the bike than I had a few weeks ago to push the whole position forward. I've also slid the saddle forward about 10 millimeters. I may actually slide it a little bit further, and I'm actually prepared as I get tired, get sore, get stiff, to adjust both the saddle position forward and backwards, as well as the saddle height. Another important thing on this hill specifically are the front brakes. I have destroyed a fair number of rotors and pads on this hill and other hills around Bloomington. Stopping at the bottom of the hill, getting turned around and going is important to limit the overall distance that you'll ride. You want to shorten. Brakes, very important to be able to slow down, turn around, and get moving back uphill as quickly as possible. This is modified from a already large for a road bike 160 millimeter front rotor to a 200 millimeter front rotor that's really intended for downhill mountain bikes. To do that, we've moved the red caliper out, utilizing a homemade bracket modeled off of some mountain bike brackets to do the same thing. Also using pads with heat sinks and fins to reduce heat there as well. I fully intend to slow down a lot faster and turn around than anybody else we're riding with on Sunday. Now to the drivetrain. The more hills I've climbed in working on picking out an Everesting hill and doing different hills, both Griffey and this one, the front chainring keeps getting smaller and the rear cassette keeps getting larger. Now we're down to a 30 tooth race face chainring, direct mount to a 104 bolt circle diameter mountain bike crank. So we have a mountain bike crank on the drive side here. In order to fit the Quark power meter, we had to actually file away part of this chainring. On the back, we have a SRAM 12-speed AXS XX1 mountain bike derailleur working with a 1052 cassette. The drivetrain is important to be able to have as high of cadence as possible on the part of this hill that's in the 20 to 25% range. There'll be a lot less fatigue in my legs after 12 hours if I'm spinning at 70 RPM instead of 40. So the entire goal there is to keep the cadence as high as we can. A little treat with this, in order to keep the Q factor as close to what I'm used to on a road bike, I actually am using a drive side SRAM mountain bike XX1 crank mated to a red road bike crank on the left hand side. This does a couple of things. It keeps the Q factor closer to what I'm used to, but it also has had the unintended effect of keeping my chain line a little straighter by moving this chain ring over and keeping the chain in line with the gears that I'll be using on Sunday. And to be honest, I'll be using only the 3 largest cogs most of the time. Very little reason to shift out of that.
Hey, I'm Jesse, and this is my BMC URS gravel bike that normally I just use it as a road bike, and I usually have big climbing gears on it and everything. And what I did is I put a mountain bike 104 BCD power meter on it with a 30 tooth oval chainring. It was the smallest one I could find. Is One Up Components makes it, but you can't see it, so I guess that's kind of the goal, is not being able to see it. That's paired up with a 46 tooth climbing gear. I'm hoping that I can actually maybe ride in like more of the middle of the cassette to help make that smoother on my drivetrain, but who knows. For the brakes and stuff, this bike actually natively is able to run a 180 rotor, and so that was really easy. I just had to put it on. Other than that, I got my Aero handlebar for trying to descend as fast as Blaine can. I have my Oveja bolt-on snack bag so I can carry all of my food during the day, because I think that's going to be the most important part. I'm running a set of Kenda Valkyrie Pro tubeless tires with and they're 30s, but they measure out to 34 on my calipers. I think it's because these rims are 25 internal, and I like that, so I'll probably run about 50 PSI on the day. I also have 10 millimeters of rear travel on this bike. I don't know if I'll need it or not, but it's definitely going to help with the traction. I think traction is the biggest. I think traction is actually the most important thing, and that's where I think the bigger tire with the lower pressure is going to make this easier than any other piece of equipment I've added to the bike. My other thing that I want to point out is that actually I don't care about that.
Okay.
One more thing I did that I thought was really funny, it's an homage to Blaine. Because I have 2 different XX1 Eagle cranks, I had to mismatch it just to do a little homage to the man himself over there.
I just filed out of place on the chainring. So
What was the problem?
So the Quark power meter's got this little bump, and it fits everywhere else except this little bump. So I just took a file to it and made it fit. It's easier to see if you look at the Look at the backside.
Do you have super long crank arms, or do they just look long because of that tiny?
Right there.
Tiny,
that's
tiny
the piece I
chain.
had to. No, they're 175s, but I usually run 172.5s. But that was one of the problems with this now completely Frankenstein setup. Was to go to this Spider, I had to go to mountain bike, at least on this side, which mountain bike comes in 175 and 170, and I've raced 175s in the past, and my time trial bike still has them, so that's what I put on there. But the problem is, the big problem with the mountain bike stuff, the Q factor goes up 16 millimeters. The solution for that is, it's a complete bastard because there's red on this side and XX1 on this side, which the biggest reason for doing that wasn't the Q factor, but it moved my chain ring over about 4 or 5 millimeters.
Right.
So I've got a better chain line where I'll use it.
What's your biggest cog?
52. I've got
Yeah, you have an even smaller gear than I do. Then that's awesome.
so you should be all right. You're right between where I was when I came out here in July and where I am now. July was too hard. It was a 3650 on the smallest gear, and by the end of that, I think I posted that picture.
Oh yeah.
I thought I was smiling in that picture. Mickey came out for that one like 60 laps in. She looks at me and said, "You look terrible." It's not the level of encouragement I need. So those are all the changes. So all ready to go. Please support Habitat.
I don't think that's a bad idea at all.
What's that?
We could keep doing the Frogger thing, or we could like move you to the, like out of the way into like that driveway. Do you think these people would care?
Probably not. It's
Yeah.
a communal driveway anyway.
Just to like give you a